Life in their home had always been the kind that didn't ask for attention. It moved in soft routines, warm meals shared without hurry, half-finished jokes that turned into full laughter, and evenings where the biggest problem was deciding what to watch on television. The couple had built something stable over the years, not flashy, not dramatic, just a comfortable rhythm where even silence felt like companionship instead of emptiness. The husband was the kind of man who forgot where he put his phone 5 times a day but never forgot to ask if she had eaten. The wife, sharper with words but softer in actions, often teased him for being confidently confused about everything except her mood. Together, they made a strange balance that worked better than either of them expected when they first got married. Their home reflected that balance too, slightly messy in a lived-in way, but full of small shared victories. Like plants they somehow kept alive and furniture they assembled without divorcing each other in the process. That calm didn't survive long. It started on an ordinary afternoon when the doorbell rang with unnecessary aggression, like whoever was outside had already decided they were the main character of the situation. The wife opened the door and froze for half a second that felt longer than it should have. Her elder sister was standing there, looking like she had walked straight out of a courtroom drama she had written herself. Behind her stood a teenage boy with the expression of someone who had been dragged into a story he never agreed to join. Before greetings could even form, the sister stepped forward and delivered a statement so sharp it didn't sound like family. It sounded like an accusation prepared in advance. She claimed, loudly and without hesitation, that her son was biologically connected to the husband. The husband, who had followed behind with a cup of tea in hand, stopped mid-step, blinking as if the universe had briefly switched languages. The wife laughed once, short and disbelieving, thinking it was another one of her sister's attention-seeking theatrics. But the sister didn't smile. She stood her ground, eyes burning with dramatic certainty, and immediately escalated the situation by declaring she was entitled to half the house as compensation. The word house landed heavier than the accusation itself. The husband stood there still holding the tea, slowly realizing that no correct response existed for what he had just heard. He looked at his wife first, hoping this was one of those family jokes that everyone laughs about after 5 seconds. But her expression wasn't laughing anymore. It had shifted into something sharper, confused, alert, and slightly offended on principle. "I don't even remember meeting her like that," he said carefully, placing the cup down as if sudden movements might make things worse. That only made the sister more confident. She immediately pulled out her phone like a lawyer presenting evidence in a courtroom drama no one agreed to attend. With dramatic taps, she showed old beach photos, sun, sand, and a chaotic group of people wearing ridiculous matching costumes. In one of the images, the husband was there, grinning, clearly intoxicated, standing too close to too many strangers, including her sister. The wife leaned in, studying the image. Her expression tightened, not because she believed it outright, but because drunk history is always suspicious even when innocent. The husband squinted at the photo like it might suddenly unlock a hidden memory file in his brain, but nothing came except vague flashes of loud music and questionable dance moves. "That proves nothing," he said quickly. "I've been near thousands of people at parties. That's just public survival." But the sister jumped on the moment like she had been waiting for it. She insisted that emotional connection, timing, and cosmic romantic alignment were more important than boring things like biology. The teenage boy sighed loudly from the background, already tired of being the center of an argument he didn't care about. The wife, instead of exploding, went quiet. That silence worried the husband more than shouting would have. She was thinking, calculating, and trying to separate stupidity from possibility. Because even though she trusted him, the universe had a strange habit of humiliating people with perfectly timed misunderstandings. The sister, sensing control slipping, escalated further and repeated her demand for half the house, as if property division was the natural conclusion of every emotional accusation. The husband finally exhaled, rubbed his forehead, and muttered that this family clearly needed either therapy or a different planet. That was when the wife made a decision that changed the direction of the chaos. She would not argue blindly anymore. If the accusation existed, it would be tested properly. A DNA test. But she added one condition that made the sister pause for the first time. If she was wrong, she would owe them something far more humiliating than money, an apology so public it would echo louder than the accusation ever did. The idea of a DNA test should have ended the argument. Instead, it made everything worse. The sister refused to agree to anything normal, insisting that standard procedures are emotionally biased, and demanding what she called a truth confirmation process involving full family observation. No one knew what that meant, but she said it with such confidence that even the husband briefly wondered if science had secretly added new rules while he wasn't paying attention. Within a day, the living room stopped feeling like a home and started feeling like a courtroom no one had booked. The cheap lawyer the sister brought in made it even more chaotic. He introduced himself like a celebrity instead of legal counsel, and immediately started recording everything for possible viral monetization purposes. Every sentence from him sounded like it was edited for social media engagement rather than legal accuracy. The husband sat on the sofa, slowly losing patience, while the wife remained calm in a way that felt more dangerous than anger. She stopped reacting emotionally and started responding logically, dismantling each ridiculous claim with dry, precise comments that made the sister even more frustrated. The teenage boy, meanwhile, had fully detached from reality. He sat in a corner scrolling on his phone, occasionally looking up only to ask if the Wi-Fi password had changed due to this ongoing emotional disaster. His indifference somehow made the situation even more absurd. The sister kept spiraling. One moment she was tearfully talking about betrayal, the next she was aggressively demanding property rights like she was negotiating a business merger with emotional damages included. She contradicted herself so many times that even the lawyer quietly stopped taking notes and started looking confused. The real tension shifted when the husband and wife started working together instead of reacting separately. Small sarcastic exchanges between them became a form of emotional armor. When the sister accused the husband of hidden intentions from the beach era, the wife calmly replied that he can barely hide snacks, let alone secret relationships. That single line almost broke the husband's serious expression. But beneath the comedy, something subtle changed. The couple's bonds strengthened under pressure. They were no longer just defending themselves individually. They were aligned, unified against absurdity. Then, in the middle of the chaos, an old message thread surfaced accidentally while the lawyer was reviewing evidence. It mentioned a long-forgotten cousin involved in a prank-heavy beach event years ago. The name wasn't important at first, but the tone suggested that something far more ridiculous than infidelity had happened that night. The sister paused for the first time, unsure. The certainty she had been holding on to started to crack, not fully breaking yet, but shifting just enough to hint that the truth might not match her story at all. The DNA results arrived on a quiet afternoon that felt too normal for what everyone expected to be a life-changing moment. The lawyer tried to dramatize the envelope opening like it was a season finale reveal, but even he sensed something anticlimactic hanging in the air. The husband opened it first, read it twice, then leaned back slowly with an expression that mixed relief and exhaustion. Not the father. The words should have ended everything. Instead, they created a strange silence where nobody immediately knew how to continue the argument that had consumed their lives for days. The sister stared at the paper as if it had personally betrayed her. Her confidence, once loud and unshakable, started collapsing in real time. But the real twist wasn't even the result, it was what came after. The wife, still suspicious of how something this absurd could spiral so far, pushed further into the old message thread that had surfaced earlier. What they uncovered was a chain of forgotten conversations pointing back to a long-ignored cousin known in the family for extreme pranks, chaotic parties, and a habit of turning harmless situations into lifelong misunderstandings. The truth unraveled quickly after that. Years ago at a beach gathering, that cousin had organized a ridiculous identity switch prank involving costumes, fake introductions, and deliberately misleading flirting games. People were encouraged to act like strangers meeting for the first time, even if they already knew each other. Alcohol, confusion, and identical outfits did the rest. The sister had mistaken another relative entirely during that chaos, building an emotional narrative afterward based on fragments of memory that never actually belonged together. The husband had simply been one of many background figures in a scene he never participated in meaningfully. The so-called fatherhood was nothing more than a prank-induced misunderstanding that grew legs over time. The teenage boy wasn't connected to the husband at all. His real origin story traced back to a completely different encounter involving the same chaotic cousin and another guest who had long since disappeared from family discussions. When the full truth settled in, the entire accusation collapsed under its own absurd weight. The sister didn't have another argument left. For the first time, her voice lost its edge. The demand for half the house suddenly felt embarrassing even to her own ears. The lawyer quietly closed his notebook, realizing there would be no viral victory here, just a story too messy to monetize cleanly. The husband exhaled, not angry anymore, just tired in the way people get after surviving nonsense they never signed up for. The wife didn't celebrate loudly either. She simply looked at her husband and gave a small, knowing expression that said they had made it through something ridiculous together. The teenage boy, unfazed as always, finally spoke up and asked if dinner was still happening, because regardless of emotional revelations, he was still hungry. And just like that, the house was no longer a courtroom. It was just a home again, slightly more chaotic than before, but intact.